The LA Kings will not take the ice in the final game of their 5-game homestand. Details and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we are on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Enjoy the NFL postseason with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the LA Kings announced a little before noon today on Wednesday that their game scheduled for tonight at home against the Calgary Flames has been postponed. The press release from the Kings said, quote, "Tonight's game against Calgary has been postponed. Our hearts are with our entire Los Angeles community. We appreciate the hard-working first responders who are diligently working to contain the fire and protect our community. We appreciate the league's support in keeping our fans, staff, and players safe." They also added that for those with tickets for tonight's game, please hold on to your tickets. There is nothing you need to do. The tickets will still be valid for the rescheduled date. More information and ticketing options will be communicated directly once the game date and time is confirmed. So again, that was the statement earlier today from the Los Angeles Kings. Obviously, I want to pass along my thoughts and prayers to everybody affected by these horrific fires we're experiencing here in LA. I and my family are fine. I do know several people who have been affected or were in danger of being affected. Fortunately, they're all okay for now. I'm sure there are people listening and watching this show who have either been affected or know people that have been affected by these fires. And on behalf of all Kings fans everywhere, I'm sure we want to pass along all of our thoughts and hopes that you guys are going to be okay. Scary stuff, watching the news with my wife last night, and those winds were unbelievable, and walking outside our home and smelling the smoke. Again, we were not in an affected area, but certainly can understand and feel how bad this situation is. And sometimes life takes priority over the games we play. And unfortunately, but appropriately, the LA Kings decided to postpone their game, ironically, against the Flames for Wednesday night. Again, huge shout out to the firefighters and first responders out there. I've played beer league hockey with a lot of those people. Stay safe, and we thank you for what you do. As for less important things, so much for my big Kings Flames preview show I was going to have for today, but no worries. We've got some things to discuss and tell you about, and we'll start with some Kings news, and it involves defenseman Joel Edmondson. Took that scary fall in the game Saturday against the Lightning, got undercut by a Lightning player when he jumped up for a puck, came down on his head. He was not at practice on Tuesday, but he was at practice on Wednesday wearing the red non-contact jersey. So I'm pretty sure had there have been a game tonight that Joel Edmondson would not have played in that game. But missing practice, sitting out for one day, coming right back the next day with the red non-contact jersey, I think we can expect him to be back in the Kings lineup sooner rather than later. Again, I don't think he would have played tonight against Calgary. I think they would have sat him out as a precaution, but I do expect him to be with the Kings as they embark on this 5-game road trip coming up starting on Friday. I think he'll be on the trip, and I would not be surprised if he was actually in the lineup for the opening game of that 5-game road trip coming up Friday in Winnipeg. So it looks like defenseman Joel Edmondson will be ready to go for the LA Kings shortly. Looking ahead to that 5-game road trip, it will be a challenge for the Kings. They are taking on 2 of the top teams in the NHL in the first 3 games of that trip. They've got the Jets in Winnipeg on Friday. They've got the Oilers in Edmonton on Monday. Sandwiched in between is, I guess, ironically enough, the Calgary Flames, which they'll play on Saturday in Alberta. So back-to-back games in Western Canada for the Kings coming up. The other 3 games, all against Pacific Division rivals. Mentioned the Flames. You've also got the Canucks next Thursday in Vancouver, and the Kings will wrap up the trip next Saturday in Seattle against the Kraken. The Kings head out on this 5-game trip on a high note, a 4-game winning streak, all at home. The streak has certainly seen the Kings win in a variety of ways, which I think is encouraging. They're not just dominating everyone, which would be nice. But I think, it's not realistic, right? To think you're going to just dominate everyone. So to win in different ways and playing different styles, but in the end coming out on top, I think that's a nice sign. Certainly started off with that huge win over the Oilers. Great defensive performance against 2 of the top players in the league. High intensity game, high level game. And then the next night they have to play a Philadelphia team, and certainly a bit of a letdown game, which you could understand after a thrilling overtime win over a rival team the night before. The Kings got caught up in a bit of a run and gun game, not exactly what they do well, but in the end, the Kings closed strong. They scored the final 3 goals of the game to rally for the win, including outscoring Philadelphia 2-0 in the third period. The Devils game, more of a game that was to the style of the Kings' liking, low scoring, hard fought, defensive. But again, the Kings are the better team in the third period. They outscored New Jersey 2-0 in the third period and win that game. And then the latest game for the Kings, Saturday against Tampa Bay. Again, not the cleanest effort for the Kings, but a very gritty, gutty effort where they pull out a win. And again, score the only goal in the third period to get that win. The Kings have outscored their last 4 opponents over this 4-game winning streak in the third period, 6-0. So coming up big when it matters most in close games in the third period. Great sign for the Kings. Hopefully they can take that on the road with them as well. So the Kings do have back-to-back games coming up, as I mentioned, Friday and Saturday. So it would have been interesting to see who Kings head coach Jim Hiller would have started in tonight's game, which was, of course, postponed. My guess is that it would have been Darcy Kemper, but you never know with Jim Hiller. Obviously, we are going to see both Kemper and David Riddick getting starts on Friday and Saturday. I would assume it'll be Darcy Kemper against the Oilers and Riddick against the Flames. But again, you never know with Jim Hiller. But to me, it just makes too much sense. You start your number 1 goalie against the better team. That would be Kemper against Edmonton. Riddick is coming off his worst home start so far this season. That was his last start. That was when he allowed 4 goals against the Flyers on December 29th. 4 goals allowed on 21 shots. Other than that, though, he has been lights out at home, but he has had a few duds on the road, including the last game before this current great stretch of games for the Kings. That was that embarrassing 7-2 loss in San Jose against the Sharks. Riddick on the season, 11-8, 2.55 goals against average, and 887 save percentage. We'd like to see the save percentage a little bit better there. Meanwhile, Darcy Kemper has been amazing since coming back from his last injury, 7-0-2. Overall, 11-2-5, 2.23 goals against average, and a 920 save percentage. Those are great numbers. And we're coming up on the mid-season mark for the Kings. Some teams are almost there already, but the Kings have played not as many games. We'll mention that in a second. But how about Darcy Kemper for a dark horse Vezina Trophy finalist? Now, he's likely not going to win the award. I think Connor Hellebuck of the Winnipeg Jets is kind of running away with it at the moment. But I think Kemper has a shot at being one of the 3 finalists if he can continue to do what he's been doing of late. And that's certainly a big if. But as of Wednesday, Darcy Kemper is 4th in the NHL in both save percentage and goals against average. Now he's tied for 21st in wins, but considering the Kings have points in 16 of his 19 starts and that he has missed time due to injury, again, if he can have a season, a second half similar to what he's had over his last, 16 starts or whatever it is, I think there's a chance he could be in the discussion as a finalist for the Vezina Trophy. Of course, as Austin Stanovich pointed out on the show the other day, we could have said the same thing about Cam Talbot when he had a great first half last year and second half didn't go as well. So yes, a lot of time, a lot of games still to go, but again, encouraging what Darcy Kemper has been doing for the LA Kings. Checking some of the numbers for the Kings and how things are trending over this last group of games, over this last stretch of games that the Kings have played so well in. The Kings are 13th in the NHL in goals per game average. They're averaging just over 3 goals a game, 3.01. That is an improvement over where they were a month ago. Kings now number 1 in the NHL in goals allowed per game, 2.5. That is an improvement over the last month. The Kings are 8th in the league on the penalty kill, 82.6%. That has improved over the last month. The one area where I'm sure you know it has not improved. As a matter of fact, it's actually gotten worse, and that is the Kings power play. Now 28th in the NHL. Only 4 teams are worse in the league, 16%. Kings have, it's hard for them. I talk about, the other areas team-wise where the Kings are trending in the right direction. They're doing better. I will say it is hard for the Kings to improve on their power play when they almost never have a power play. They're getting like 1 a game, 2 at the most. So difficult to try and get better at it when you're not getting an opportunity to have chances to even do it. So that's certainly a part of it. But yes, the Kings power play, everything else heading in the right direction, everything else improving. But the Kings power play continues to be the one area where the Kings are seriously underperforming so far this year. Up next, we're going to talk about which players are hot and maybe not for the LA Kings. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it is not too late to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, of course, but FanDuel also lets you bet on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team is going to score, and so much more. And there is a local interest here in Los Angeles. Both the Rams and the Chargers are in the playoffs, so we're looking forward to checking that out. I know I am, with my wife being a huge Chargers fan. We glued to the TV this weekend. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so the Kings on the season, 23, 10, and 3, 51 points in 38 games, but they have clearly played their best hockey over the last 6 weeks, where they have a record of 12, 2, and 2. So who is leading the way statistically over this stretch of 16 games? Thought we'd look into it, and maybe not a surprise, but Adrian Kempe leading the team in points, 16 points in 16 games, so literally a point per game player, which is fantastic. For Adrian Kempe, Andre Kopitar not far behind with 14 points, and Warren Foegele is third over the last 16 games. He has 12 points. Now, Foegele heating up. He had 6 goals and 11 points in the first 2 months of the season. He's gotten better, though, as the year has gone along. 5 goals, 12 points in the last month for Warren Foegele. Also leads the Kings in game-winning goals over the last 16 games with 3. Your leading goal scorer over this stretch, not surprisingly, is your leading goal scorer on the season. That's Adrian Kempe, 19 on the year, 9 goals in 16 games for Juice. Kevin Fiala right now is second over that span with 7 goals. That is half of his season totals. And Andre Kopitar and Quentin Byfield each have 6 goals over the last 16 games. Philip Deneau is leading the team in assists over that span with 9. Andre Kopitar, Vladislav Gavrikov, and Jordan Spence each have 8 assists in the last 16 games. Spence has 3 assists, or had 3 assists total going in to this stretch of games. He also has 3 game-winning assists for the Kings over the last 16 games, which is the most of any Kings player. Remarkably, the Kings have been playing as well as they have with virtually no production from their special teams. In the last 16 games, they've got 5 power play goals in total, and that actually seems high, just judging by how we're watching the games. It's like, oh, they got 5 power play goals. It's not bad. It's not very good. That's over 16 games, 5 power play goals, 0 goals shorthanded. as well, which is a little bit surprising because, again, the penalty kill has actually been really good, getting better, and they actually are looking to attack when they have the puck shorthanded, but it just has not been working well. The Kings not scoring any goals to speak of, really, on the special teams with the power play or shorthanded. Kings have only one player who is a minus player over the last 16 games, and that is Kevin Fiala. He's a -1, which is at least an improvement over the -10 he was on the season. So he was pretty bad going into this stretch. It was bad, but he's improving, which is good. Adrian Kempe and Jordan Spence are both a +11 over the last 16 games. So Jordan Spence quietly doing a nice job, getting better, which we've noticed. Now, he was pretty bad at the beginning, but he's gotten better. Adrian Kempe and Quentin Byfield are both a +10 over the last 16 games. Some have talked about Alex Laferriere slipping of late. Over the last 16 games, he's got 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points. That's not bad. Not bad at all. Over the season, 13 goals, 13 assists for 26 points in 38 games. So the goals per game has dipped a little bit over this last span. But the points per game actually is identical. So maybe just a little bit of a slip. I think some people maybe are feeling it's more than it actually is. But Alex Laferriere, again, the goal scoring has slipped a little bit, but I think we knew he would cool off somewhat. But it's not as bad. Some people are like, oh, no, he's in a slump. I would not go that far. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. I'm sure a few of you are wanting some more analytical type numbers from me, but sorry, I'm not that guy. Probably because I'm too dumb to understand what they mean. At least I'll admit it. So Corsi, Fenwick, all that stuff. I do not have that for you. I'm sorry. I'm a meat and potatoes, old school kind of a guy looking at the stats, goals, points, assists, things like that. So sorry. From a team standpoint, the Kings do not have the most wins over the last 16 games. I've talked about this before, but the Oilers and Golden Knights both have more wins than the Kings over the last 16 games, or that span of 16 games. So do the Maple Leafs and the Avalanche and the Wild. All have more wins. Now, they have played more games, but they have more wins and points the same. The Kings 25 points in the last 16 games. Golden Knights, Oilers, Maple Leafs, Avalanche, Capitals have more points. However, the Kings have played fewer games than all of those teams. And I've heard this mentioned a lot with Tampa Bay. People are like, oh, watch Tampa Bay in the East. They've played, like 5-6 games less than everybody else. The Kings actually are tied with Tampa Bay for the fewest games played in the NHL. I don't see anybody, though, saying that about the Kings, for what it's worth. But for the Kings, they have the second best winning percentage over the last 16 games. And they do have the best points per game average over those last 16 games as well. Unfortunately, though, they have not gained any ground in the standings. We'll give you some details on that. And we've got lots of Kings news and notes to pass along. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Those of us who live here in Southern California, so lucky we have, we live in a place where we can see so many amazing live events, sports, of course, but it's not only about sports. You've got theater events, concerts, and comedy shows to check out. And when you check out those live events, no matter where you are, you need to do what I do for all my ticket needs, and that is use Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The all-in pricing feature shows you the total up front. You've got no surprise fees at checkout, and you can check out the Vantage Point with a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You'll love the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Well, as Kings fans, we should all be very happy with how the team is playing right now. We should feel good about what we're seeing on the ice. However, it is a little concerning, a little frustrating that the Kings, even over what has been clearly their best stretch of games, have not benefited at all in the standings. The Kings over the last 16 games, again, 12-2-2. That's from November 27th through January the 7th. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers are both 14-3-1 over that same stretch. They have played 2 more games than the Kings, but the Golden Knights and Oilers have both continued to be successful. They both won their games last night. So again, the Kings, as well as they're playing, it's really a good thing they are playing this well, or else the Golden Knights and Oilers would have left them in the dust, and the Kings would have been clearly in that 3rd spot in the Pacific Division. Now, they are there, but at least they're still hanging around. Golden Knights, 28-9-3, 59 points. That's the most in the NHL, by the way. Oilers are 25-12-3 with their win last night, 53 points. They did move past LA and into 2nd place, and the Kings right now 2 points back of the Oilers with a record of 23-10-5. Some few odds and ends to pass along. I normally don't do this as far as promoting other podcasts, but I know this one's pretty popular. You might have heard of it. The Spittin' Chicklets podcast had Kings captain Anze Kopitar on as a guest on Tuesday's show. I checked it out. Good stuff. It's not too much about the Kings now. A lot about Kopi's career, but it was good. I would advise you to check it out. A lot of good stuff about the Kings' 2 Stanley Cup runs. A lot of fun stories. I wish they would have talked a little bit more about this season with the Kings, but again, this is not a podcast for necessarily Kings fans. It's for NHL fans. So really glad to see Anze Kopitar get a chance on a very popular show to get some exposure, to get people to hear what he had to say, to hear his story, find out about his career, to get some, well-deserved exposure. So that was cool. If you want to check it out, again, I think it's worth your time. The Spittin' Chicklets podcast from Tuesday. It's a 2-hour plus podcast, which I didn't know. If you want to scroll through it, the Kopi interview is about an hour and 30 minutes in. You can scroll through if you don't want to listen to the rest of it, but it was very cool to see Anze Kopitar, again, be a guest on a very popular, hockey podcast that is out there for everyone. And it was good stuff. It's good to hear from Anze Kopitar. He's normally a pretty quiet, reserved guy, and he still is even in this interview. But some good stories, and they talk a lot about the 2 Stanley Cup wins and some stuff maybe you didn't know. From a future Hall of Fame King to a very promising young Kings prospect, Kings' number 1 pick from this year's draft, Liam Greentree, was recently named the Ontario Hockey League Player of the Week. Over the last week for the Windsor Spitfires, the captain of the team had 4 goals and 7 assists for 12 points. That was in 4 games, all wins by his team. The recently turned 19-year-old leads the OHL in points this season with 68 points in 38 games. He's got 29 goals and 39 assists. Second time this season that Liam Greentree has been named the OHL Player of the Week. Saw some highlights of his past week on the announcement, the Twitter announcement of him being the Player of the Week. I noticed he wears number 66. I don't know if you would try and wear that with the LA Kings, which actually, I've talked about this before. He's got an outside shot of maybe making the Kings team next season. That's how good he is. Now we'll see. They're not going to rush him. They're going to take their time. But he's that good that I think he could get some games, right? Maybe they give him the look early in the season, let him get a little exposure, kind of like they did with Brant Clark, then send him to Ontario, let him get a full season of pro hockey, and then maybe the following year he's ready to go if everything goes well. But if you're wondering, number 66 was worn by Mario Lemieux. No one in the NHL, actually I should correct myself. There was one player in the NHL who tried to wear number 66 since Mario Lemieux retired. His name was Josh Hosang for the New York Islanders, and he got so much crap over wearing number 66, which is not retired league-wide like Wayne Gretzky's 99, that he changed his number. I'm not a big retire numbers for like league-wide. I'm not really a fan of that, with all due respect to Wayne Gretzky and Jackie Robinson, which they've done to in baseball. I think that should be left up to teams. No one has ever worn number 66 for the LA Kings. I actually think it would be cool to see Liam Greentree wear number 66. He probably won't do it. I don't even know if the Kings will let him do it. But I mean, why not honor, Mario Lemieux by wearing that number? I mean, the numbers that I have worn when I've played sports were always because of somebody else. I didn't pick out like my own number and I'm like, I'm going to make this my own. For example, I grew up a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. I always tried to wear number 21 for Roberto Clemente. I did a book report on him when I was a kid, and I became fascinated by him. A tragic but great story. A very interesting guy. He died trying to be a humanitarian, delivering aid to earthquake victims in, I think it was Nicaragua. He was on a plane and the plane crashed. He's if you've ever been to Pittsburgh, he's almost a saint in the city of Pittsburgh, like a larger than life character. I don't know. I just think it would be really cool if you had a favorite player and you wanted to wear their number. And I don't know. I would love to see him wear it. We'll see if he does. Probably won't. But anyway, Liam Greentree, the point is Liam Greentree looking really, really good as a big time prospect for the LA Kings in the not too distant future. He should be playing for the Kings, I think. I did want to mention another podcast note as I'm promoting all these other podcasts. The 32 Thoughts podcast with NHL insider Elliot Friedman did have on their latest episode a note on former Kings forward Arthur Kaliev. According to Elliot Friedman, Kings GM Rob Blake was looking for a mid-round draft pick in a trade for Arthur Kaliev, so a 4th or 5th round pick, and no team in the NHL was willing to give that up to get Arthur Kaliev, which is still crazy to me. Parting with a 5th round pick for a guy who was a 2nd round pick and does have some talent, I don't know. Surprising to me that teams like, the Blackhawks, the Sharks, the Sabres all said no thanks, but apparently, according to Elliot Friedman, they did. By the way, the Rangers did play last night. Arthur Kaliev did not make his Rangers debut in that game. The NHL announced that the Florida Panthers are going to host an outdoor game next year against the Boston Bruins. Florida's never had an outdoor game, so okay. And with the technology, you could certainly hold these outdoor games in what is a traditional warm weather climate. Some of you old heads might remember the LA Kings in 1991 hosted an outdoor game in Las Vegas in the parking lot of Caesars Palace. You can find this on YouTube. I think the entire game is there. It's wild. They set up like some stands in the parking lot, and this was way before all the modern technology with them being able to do the ice outdoors like they can now. And they actually pulled it off fairly well. And I think Wayne Gretzky played in there. Luc Robitaille, some of those guys played in that game. It was wild though. The outdoor games I think are interesting. I've been to 2 of the outdoor games for the Kings, Dodger Stadium and Levi Stadium up in Santa Clara when they played the Sharks. I don't know if Los Angeles is in the rotation to host another outdoor game anytime soon. I know the Kings are hosting the draft, the NHL draft, this offseason, this coming draft. So maybe that will kind of, hosting a marquee league-wide event. Maybe that gets them bump down the list as far as hosting another outdoor game. But I'd like to see another outdoor game here in Los Angeles at some point involving the LA Kings. That would be fun. Finally, the Kings are on game number 38 of the NHL season, so almost to the halfway point of the 82-game season. As I mentioned, the Kings have played the fewest number of games in the NHL, along with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I have seen some teams' GMs are already doing their mid-season press conference interviews. So I am expecting Kings GM Rob Blake to do a mid-season meet the media kind of thing coming up soon. Obviously, when he does, we'll cover that on this show. I'm going to throw this out there, though, for you guys, for our fan feedback show. If you could ask Rob Blake one question, what would it be? And I'll leave it out there just like that. So some of you want to answer that in a funny way. If you want to answer it in a serious way, I know what my one question is for Rob Blake, which I will reveal on Friday's fan feedback show. But if you want to answer that, what is the one question at the midway point for the LA Kings that you would like to ask Kings GM Rob Blake? All right, for you everydayers, those of you who listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, on Thursday's show, we're going to preview the Kings-Jets game coming up on Friday. Friday, we'll have a recap of that game, and we'll also have our Kings fan feedback show as well. So a lot going on in Friday's show. We'll squeeze it all in and give you your chance to talk about the LA Kings. Email address to get in on the feedback show, lockedoneddie at gmail.com, EDDIE. You can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section. Also, love you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Hope you are doing well out there, especially the people here in LA affected by the fires. Thanks for watching and listening this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.